You ever notice how sometimes in Hollywood, you see two people together and instantly know there's a story there? Like, it's not just a casual friendship. There's this energy between them that makes you think, okay, what's going on here? Well, that's exactly the vibe with Justin Bieber and this guy named Eddie Benjamin. And before you say, Eddie who? Trust me, I had the same reaction at first. But once I started digging into who this guy actually is, where he came from and why he's suddenly so important in Justin's life, things got interesting fast, because Eddie's story isn't just about music. It's about sudden fame, close connections that make people talk, and a whole lot of moments that probably have Hailey Bieber questioning her patience. So let's go all the way back to where Eddie came from and how this all started. Eddie Benjamin isn't your typical Hollywood buddy who just shows up in the background of celebrity parties. He's from Sydney, Australia, and he didn't grow up with a silver spoon in his mouth, but in a home where creativity was the norm. His mom was a dancer, his dad was a drummer, so you can imagine the kind of childhood he had: music everywhere, art everywhere, creativity almost baked into his DNA. By the time he was 14, while most kids are still figuring out how to play a key and guitar chord, Eddie was already performing in Sydney clubs, not just school talent shows, real gigs. He even had a band with his classmates, and they weren't half bad either. You could tell early on that this wasn't a hobby for him. This was his whole identity forming. When you see videos of young Eddie playing, there's this focus in his face, like he's not just performing but living inside the music. And that's something you can't really teach. Either you have that relationship with sound or you don't. Over the years, he didn't just stick to one instrument. He picked up guitar, bass, keys, and eventually production. Basically, if you threw him in a studio and told him to make a song from scratch, he could do it without needing anyone else. And that skill would later become really important. Eventually, Eddie made the big jump to Los Angeles, and that's where his story starts getting layered. One of the first big names to enter his life was Sia. Yeah, the Sia with the wigs, the huge hits, and that mysterious pop star persona. Eddie met her through his then-girlfriend Maddie Ziegler. Yes, the same Maddie from all of Sia's music videos. Now here's where it gets unusual. Eddie didn't just meet Sia and get a little advice. She kind of took him in, literally. He lived with her for a while and she became this intense mentor figure in his life. In interviews, Eddie has said she acted like a second mother to him, guiding him through the industry and making sure nobody took advantage of him. She's admitted she got super protective, even saying she would personally check his contracts and deals. Now, depending on how you look at it, that's either really sweet or kind of strange. Because Sia is decades older than Eddie, and she's had other relationships like this with young performers, including Maddie. Some people think it's just her way of nurturing talent, while others online have raised eyebrows about how close she gets to these young artists and even housing them. On Reddit, you can find whole threads debating whether it's just mentorship or something with really blurred boundaries. People have even pointed out she's had other teenage boys living on her property after they aged out of foster care, which again can be interpreted in different ways depending on how much you trust her intentions. But regardless of what anyone thinks, Eddie clearly valued her guidance, and his career kept moving forward. Then, in 2022, everything shifted. Eddie got the kind of break most artists dream about. He was chosen as one of the opening acts for Justin Bieber's Justice World Tour. And let me tell you, whatever happened during that tour clearly clicked on a deep level between them, because these two became inseparable almost overnight. They weren't just acquaintances or casual collaborators. They were constantly around each other, posting about each other, writing together, hanging out. It went from zero to best friends very fast. Now, here's where the public starts talking. Because when Justin Bieber gets close to someone, especially in such an open and affectionate way, people notice. And it's not like Justin and Eddie are shy about it. On social media, Justin has called Eddie the next generation of music, while Eddie has written these long, heartfelt posts about how much he loves Justin and how grateful he is for their friendship. And I mean, that's all fine, guys can be close friends without it being a big deal. But then we start hearing stories from people who've actually seen them together in person. One of the most talked about moments came from German singer Bill Kaulitz, who says he was at a VIP Coachella party and saw Justin hardcore cuddling and pouring at Eddie, all while Hailey Bieber sat nearby looking very uncomfortable. According to him, the whole vibe was so intimate it felt like they needed to get a room. And that's not some anonymous gossip blog, that's a first-hand account from another celebrity. Of course, Justin and Eddie have never confirmed anything romantic, but let's just say it added fuel to the rumor fire. What makes it even more interesting is that Justin's public dynamic with Hailey can feel inconsistent. Sometimes they look happy and united, but other times he seems distant or even dismissive, especially compared to the warmth and excitement he shows when talking about Eddie. And when people notice that difference, they start wondering why. Is it just because Eddie's a creative partner and Justin's more passionate about music than anything else? Or is there something more personal going on? I can't answer that for sure, but it's definitely part of why this friendship keeps getting so much attention. Now, in terms of music, Eddie's influence on Justin's recent work is undeniable. On Justin's latest album, Eddie is credited as a co-writer on 11 out of 21 songs. That's huge. Some fans even joked that Eddie basically ghost-wrote the whole thing while Justin just hung around for the credits. I'm not saying that's true, but it shows how significant people think Eddie's contribution was. The album's rollout was messy too, released later than expected, with streaming services scrambling to update the right credits. But once everything was corrected, Eddie's name was all over it. Eddie has talked about how much he learned from working on that project, calling it the best musical experience of his life. He says Justin's ears for music are unlike anything he's ever seen, and he means that literally. Eddie has a condition called synesthesia, where one sense triggers another. For him, hearing music can create a visual experience, like seeing colors. That kind of brain wiring can make certain musical connections feel almost magical, which might explain why he feels such a unique creative bond with Justin. But of course, not everyone sees it as purely musical. Some fans think the two avoid being photographed arriving together at events because they don't want to be seen as attached at the hip. Others point out that they spend long nights in the studio together and sometimes vanish for trips, like a recent mountain retreat where a big chunk of the album was supposedly recorded in just weeks. And whether it's fair or not, when two celebrities are that close and there's already speculation, people are going to connect dots, even if those dots are completely imagined. From my perspective, here's the thing. The entertainment industry runs on relationships. You can't just be talented, you need connections, chemistry, trust. And when you find someone you vibe with creatively, it can be addictive. You want to work with them all the time. You start seeing them not just as a collaborator, but as a kind of creative safety net. And I think that's part of what's going on here. Eddie clearly brings something out of Justin musically that maybe other people can't. And Justin, in turn, gives Eddie a platform and a level of exposure that's priceless. But I also think the personal side of their connection is exactly why fans and gossip outlets won't leave it alone. You've got public affection, awkward third wheel moments with Hailey, rumors from people who claim to have seen them looking more than friendly, and an undeniable level of creative partnership. Whether it's romantic, purely platonic, or somewhere in between, it's rare to see a superstar that's openly connected to another guy without the usual bro performance that keeps things at arm's length. And that's what makes it so fascinating to watch. As for what happens next, my guess is Eddie's not going anywhere anytime soon. If history tells us anything, when Justin has a falling out with a friend, it turns into public drama, unfollows, cryptic posts, maybe even a song about it. But right now, the bromance is strong. They're making music, they're supporting each other, and they're ignoring the noise. If something did happen to shake that up, you can bet we'd see it spill out onto Instagram in real time. Until then, it's kind of a win-win for both of them. Justin gets a talented co-writer and collaborator who clearly understands his vision, and Eddie gets to work on major projects and be part of the inner circle of one of the most famous pop stars in the world. The only catch? Every hug, every Instagram post, every public appearance is going to be dissected for hidden meaning. And honestly, given how much people love a juicy Hollywood friendship or potential romance, that's probably not going to change anytime soon. So, that's pretty much the full story, and I hope you enjoyed diving into it with me. If you found it interesting, learned something new, or just enjoyed the way we explored it together, then make sure to stick around for more. I've got plenty of other stories, updates, and behind-the-scenes details coming your way, so you definitely don't want to miss out, Togon. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button, drop a comment to let me know your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you're always the first to catch the next one.